We can see that life has 7 essential mysteries, and it's very helpful to focus on them in various different ways. So, this talk is about that question of discussing what the 7 mysteries are, what correspondences we can make with them, and how that can be useful to apply the ideas in your life. So the first thing that we consider is that we can perceive life. And that isn't the same for everyone. In fact, no two people perceive events identically. And so, to some significant extent, what we perceive is a choice. And the choice we make of our perception is the foundation, the fundament of all of our life experiences. All of our lives depend upon that way that we have of choosing how to see things. On a simple level, you can see the glass half full or half empty, but it's so much more complex than that. We see what we look at, and we look at what we feel like looking at. So it's a sense of filtering out some things and concentrating in on other things. How we focus our attention is a very great determinant in what we see and how we see it. So that's the first thing we have to consider, the choice of perception. According to that choice, we lead ourselves into different experiences. So that's the second thing that we're studying, experience. We have an experience of life, which is the experience we have of ourselves. There's no difference here. What we consider ourselves to be, what we consider our lives to be, are actually one and the same. We are our lives. We're not a part of it, we are it. So the experiences we have are who we are. Now, there is no other input data for our learning than this. So that's the third wisdom or experience, the mystery. The third mystery is that we learn. And through our experiences, we learn. We can learn slowly, we can learn quickly, we can learn deeply, or we can learn on a shallow level. That's the differences that make the difference. And that is according to our attitude of learning. What is our approach to learning? Is it a work in progress? Is it challenge? Is it overwhelmingly difficult for us? Or is it playful? Is it fun? Is it the joy in life to learn? And it changes. Children really do enjoy learning, but some enjoy that more than others, and they play with it and they give their attention and time to it. And the key determinant is the fourth mystery, and that is action. What actions do we take according to what we have just learned? And we can learn facts, we can learn who we are, we can learn creative opportunity, qualities, lots of things to learn, not all measured by a scientific process. Some are very definitely sort of subjective feelings. The point is, what do we do about that? What action do we take? And if we determine that there are two directions of action, action into involvement, a new person, a new challenge, a new job, whatever, action taken to move into that new involvement and out of an involvement. This is the dynamism of life. This is how we kind of move along. And some people do that really slowly. They really want to deepen their experience and learn the most they can from this particular scenario. Other people pick up what they can pick up as quickly as possible and move on. And there's no judgment here about which type of person is better or more likely to grow. And that's where we come to the next one. Growth occurs because of the actions that we've taken. All living things grow. It's a requirement of life that we grow. And in the human condition, the growth tends to be in wisdom or consciousness. And of course, at the beginning, we grow physically, and we tend to grow larger as we get older, but not comparable to animals, not really. But what we do is we grow in consciousness. And so the actions that we've taken bring us to the type of growth, the speed of growth, the direction of growth, and it's a requirement. We can't get around that. We can't stay in the same place for any length of time at all. Now, what happens as we grow into new levels of awareness, which inevitably is what we're talking about, new dimensions of realization, if you like, we come to reflect, and reflection is the next quality that we're looking at. And reflection has two meanings in the English language, which gives a very deep insight into its true depth of meaning. The reflection that a mirror gives us is like, we are this, there it is, there's the evidence, there's the proof that we are like this. We see ourselves because it's reflected to us. And that's what life does to us. All of our life scenarios, all of our circumstances, everything that we're experiencing out there is actually a reflection of everything that's happening in here. So if you're happy person already, you'll get happy scenarios. If you're grumpy and miserable and pessimistic, you'll get evidence in the outer reality of that. Most people think it's the other way around, that life happens to them. It's not. Who we are happens into life. And that's the mirror reflection that we're seeing. We don't see anything other than that reflection. The other meaning of the word reflection is to consider, to reflect upon. And this facility of mind is central to growth. If we are growing, then we reflect upon that growth. And if we reflect upon what's happening to us and what's changing in the outer life, then we move to a higher level of spiritual station. It's called reflexive self-consciousness. Reflexive, in other words, we do it to ourselves. Self-consciousness, we become aware of ourselves reflectively. And that principle of reflective self-consciousness is central in every spiritual tradition. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you is the Christian version of that. We come to a point when we're deep into this whole process and we understand the process and we understand through reflection much more about who we are, what we are, how we are unique, and so on. We come to go to a level beyond that into transcendence. We transcend, we rise above the everyday and ordinary. This is the highest spiritual awareness that we can have. And in that transcendent condition, we forget who we are. We lose ourselves into the all and everything. That's a high state of spiritual attainment. And yet it's not limited to mystics. I would say that anyone who is an absolute master of what they're doing, sportsmen, for example, they lose themselves in their event. And artists lose themselves in their artworks and their music and so on. So that transcendent condition forgets the self. And that's when we truly, ironically, remember who we are. So to summarize, the choice of perception, our experiences, learning, action, growth, reflection, and the transcendence and forgetting condition. Absorbing this, we start to realize that there are 7 ways of being, 7 dimensions of life, 7 attitudes of perception. And we mystically relate to the number 7 in a different way. The mind trains itself according to its perceptions and its experiences. And if you learn to focus on 7 in the analysis of things, in the planning of things, in the perception of things, you see 7, you think 7, you do 7, and the mind gets that. Little by little, over a period of time, the mind then is trained to look for and to see 7-ness in everything. And it's an intuitively obvious mystery which is shared around the world, that 7 is somewhat special in some way. And that way is mystical, magical, not grounded in physical reality, but it most certainly is a reality that we respond to. The mythology of a culture is an important aspect of how it moves forward, how it understands itself. And we have the same thing personally. We have a mythology of being. And if we study that in depth, we find that life becomes very much easier, that we can understand things. We don't get confused when we're planning things. We don't leave anything out. We train the mind to know that 7 separate components of anything are required, a necessary condition of getting anything done properly, yet sufficient. If you get these 7 things right, then you get the job done. So we study 7 as a necessary and sufficient condition for all of our situations in life. For example, in Sufism, they have the 7 planes of consciousness, from which has come the 7-word system that can be applied to astrology and be used as septiles with meanings that can now be understood through the Sabian symbols. So that's what we've been doing with it. You can apply the 7-word system to anything, the 7 words of relationship, the 7 words of project management, the 7 words of decision making, 7 ages of a seeker, 7 steps of the Sabian alchemy process, 7 steps of soul resonance. More and more and more often, using the word 7, the mind is trained more and more and more to see it. And what happens when you have got that state of mind, that resonance of mind sorted out, you get to understand that each of these 7 things can be seen as realities, worlds with their own qualities and landscapes. And it becomes immediately obvious what is the energy at the moment that you're using. If it's the fundament energy, then it's grounded and real and physical and measured. If it's the astral plane, the next plane, the plane of inquiry and experience, then it's impacting the mind, and it feels like mind stuff. Think it. Perhaps it's a low level of emotion, but it's what we do with our thinking process. The next level would touch the heart, and there we would certainly feel it as the pleasant familiarity of beauty and harmony and love. If it goes deeper than that, the 4th level, where we take action, this is where we have to find courage and stick to our convictions and have a protocol for how to behave in certain conditions. It's a personal principle develops when we operate such that all of our actions are done in right spirit. We do the right thing all of the time. We take action to involve ourselves when appropriate, following our enthusiasm, and to move on when it's no longer something that excites us. It's not meaningful anymore. And if you do that, then you develop a sense of gravitas of being. You get quite a lot of power and authority develops. If you then sort of notice that your growth is somehow connecting you more deeply to your spiritual self, you you get that life is a spiritual experience, and you want that. That becomes your priority, and you prioritize sacredness more than anything else. Not necessarily in the realms of religion and ritual, but in the realms of everyday life. You treat life with a certain level of respect and consideration. The same with people, same with your body and everything. You treat everything that you have in life as a sacred thing. When you do this, then there's a real awakening that everything is a reflection of you. And that realization takes you into higher realms of being. So that's what we're doing, the seven mysteries. We're studying seven in many different ways in order to train the mind to awaken to these seven realities that are constantly going on around us, and of which we must be aware to be fully realized in our living of life.